inseparable, even when their curiosity led them to places no one else dared to go. Their house sat on the outskirts of town, a small farmhouse surrounded by fields that stretched out like a forgotten memory. The twins, as bright as they were daring, often wandered these fields after school, chasing something they couldn't define, a longing for adventure that seemed to pull them toward the unknown. One day, in a remote corner of the field behind their house, they found it. It was just a half-buried rock at first glance, gray and unremarkable, sitting alone among the tall, wind-swept grass. Quiet, but present. Pete was hesitant to step closer, his intuition immediately telling him to go home and leave. Pete stood as Bill approached the rock. "Pete, trust me," said Bill. When they stepped closer, a low hum vibrated through the air, barely perceptible, yet somehow undeniable. They felt it, a pull. It seemed to beckon to them, urging them to reach for it. And as their hands touched the cold, smooth surface of the boulder, something shifted. The hum deepened. The air grew thick, as if time itself slowed. Pete felt his fingers tingle, and Bill gasped, his eyes wide. The rock now seemed to pulse with a strange power. It had a heat to it, despite the chill in the air, and it vibrated with a force they couldn't comprehend. Their thoughts began to blur. Their frantic gasps soon rolled out sluggish and unmotivated. Suddenly, it was as if the world outside this moment, this place, no longer mattered. Without speaking, the twins started digging. Their hands worked in unharmonious sync, clawing at the earth with desperate, manic urgency. The dirt piled up around them, but the hole they dug grew deeper, darker. It became something more, a beckoning void that filled them with a strange, intoxicating thrill. They couldn't stop. They couldn't want to stop. Not now. Not ever. Bill's hands bled from the rough soil, his fingernails chipped and broken, but he didn't notice. Pete's eyes were glazed, fixed on the hole, and when their mother called for them, shouting in panic from the distance, their only response was a quiet, hypnotic murmur, an echo of the hum emanating from the rock. Adults came. At first, it was their mother, then their father, and soon neighbors too, drawn by the strange energy pulsing from the field. They tried to stop the boys, tried to drag them away, but each time they approached, the air around them seemed to thicken, to hum louder, and a malevolent magnetism pushed them back. It wasn't just the force of the children's strange obsession that stopped them. It was something else, a shadow that lingered behind the children like a shade. No one could touch them. No one could reach them. One by one, other children from the neighborhood appeared. They came from their homes as if compelled by an unseen hand. They crawled from their windows, from backyards, from their school. It didn't matter if they were 3, 5, or 10. One by one, they joined Pete and Bill, all of them digging in the earth, some with shovels, some with their bare hands, their faces expressionless and empty. The hum filled the air, louder now, vibrating through the dirt beneath their feet. Dozens of children digging into the earth, bewitched by the calling of the core of the earth. As the hole grew deeper, the air grew darker. Rain began to fall everywhere around the crack in the sky. The adults stood helpless, screaming, some praying, begging, but nothing could stop the children. But now, they were just bodies moving, driven by some unknown force. Then, deep in the hole, something was uncovered. An ancient skeleton, blackened by time, its bones charred and twisted. It was larger than any human form, its shape contorted. Atop its skull lay a crown, dark and jewel-encrusted, but it seemed to pulse with a life of its own. The crown glowed hot, flames arcing from the edges, but the children in their hypnotic stupor didn't hesitate. One by one, they reached for the crown, their hands calm and at peace, each child taking turns placing the crown on each other's heads. The hum grew louder. It was no longer a hum, but a high-pitched screech that vibrated through the bones of the earth itself. The adults screamed in terror, but they could do nothing. They could feel it, the pull of the crown, the invisible tether that bound them all to something dark, something endless. And then Pete stood at the edge of the hole, the last child. His eyes locked onto the crown, his hand outstretched, trembling. Bill's voice whispered in his ear, but it wasn't Bill anymore. It was the Force, the voice of the void that had consumed them all. Pete, trust me. Without thinking, Pete placed the crown on his head. The world shattered. You are now weightless and surrounded by the soft nothingness. Edgeless, weightless, and free to move anywhere, but always leading to nowhere. You are nothing, living in nothing, with nothing ahead.